We start with UPSC, that's Union Public Service Commission, mentioned under Part 14 of the Constitution under Articles 315 to 323, which defines all of its composition, its appointment, its removal, independence, power, functions, everything. That's the heart and the soul and the body of the UPSC. So when we look into it, we'll see all the topics into details as mentioned in the polity book Lakshmikant. I would suggest you have your book beside and then go to this video simultaneously so that you can complete this chapter of yours as soon as possible. Let's get started. Coming to the composition of the UPSC, it consists of the chairman and other members. And who are they appointed by? They are appointed by the president. Now, coming to how many members are appointed, we find that the constitution has not mentioned any strength about the commission, and now it's all upon the discretion of the president to see what has to be done. Now, consisting of 9 to 11 members is the usual count that the commission has. And now coming on what basis are these members elected, we find that the constitution again has no qualifications for their membership except for one minimal thing that's there, which is 1/2 of the members of the commission should be such persons who have held office for at least 10 years, either under the government of India or under the government of a state. Also, the constitution authorizes the president to determine the conditions of the service of the chairman and the members. This is when we see what the members have to do. So the president appoints, the president decides the strength, the president determines the conditions of the service, and the qualification is the basic minimal. This is what the composition page has to say. Coming again to the latter part of the composition heading, we see what is the term of expiry of the UPSC members. It's either 6 years, or when they attain the age of 65 years is when they now stop holding the office, whichever is earlier. However, they can also resign by writing to the president, or they can be removed before their expiry only in the manner as provided in the constitution. So let's quickly go and check under the removal what is written as to how the UPSC members can be removed. Coming to the removal, the president can remove the chairman or any member only on certain grounds, which is mentioned as to the one point is if he is insolvent, if he is insolvent, that is bankrupt, or if he engages in any paid employment which is not a part of his usual duty. Also, if he, in any opinion of the president, is unfit to continue, maybe some medical reasons, maybe some mental issues, or maybe some physical issues. These are the 3 points that mentioned already under the constitution, which is it's insolvent, it's either engages in paid employment or is unfit to continue. The 4th point that's also mentioned is if he has any grounds of misbehavior, we see that the president can seek to its removal. However, for this misbehavior point, he has to refer the matter to the Supreme Court. And what happens when he refers the matter to the Supreme Court? The Supreme Court looks into the inquiry, upholds what's the cause and why is it done, and then the advice tendered by the Supreme Court in this regard is binding on the president on whatever the advice is given. Also, the term misbehavior is defined in the Constitution. What does it say? It says that if he is concerned or interested in any contract or agreement made by the government of India or the government of a state, he is deemed guilty. He is deemed misbehaved. Second, if he participates in any way in profits of such agreement or in benefits as a member and in common with other members of incorporated company. These 2 are the points in which a man or a woman under the UPSC member is considered misbehaved, and then the president can seek its removal and refer the matter to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's advice is binding on the president. Now, when we are done with its composition, its appointment, its removal and everything, let's quickly go through the one small topic that was written there, which might be important because we cannot leave out anything. So coming back to it, the president can appoint one of the members as an acting chairman when the office falls vacant, or when the chairman is unable to perform his functions due to absence, or some other reason. Coming to the independence of the UPSC, we've seen how they can be removed. The removal is defined in the constitution. We see how are they composed. Now we'll see what is the independence of the UPSC. Independence is required in any body to make sure that that body is running smoothly and without under pressure, or it's devoid of corruption that might prevail in the society, in the governance. So the first point, let's quickly go through this. We'll not go in details. You might just give it a read. I'll read you out the points and you'll see how it's just so easy. So under the independence, we find that the constitution has made provisions. The first is that they enjoy security of tenure. How do they enjoy? Because UPSC can only be removed on certain grounds, and all those grounds are defined in the constitution. So it's not upon the president to remove them. So they enjoy security of tenure and they can freely decide or advise on whatever they have to work on. The conditions of the service, though, are determined by the president as we read under composition, but it cannot be varied to his disadvantage after his appointment. The third is the entire expenses are charged from the Consolidated Fund of India. So it's not subject to the vote of parliament. So UPSC is free again and does not have to seek upon to the parliament so that the expenses can be foregone. Next, we come to the chairman of UPSC is not eligible for further employment. So we see that the chairman of UPSC has got no further connections or no further ways to mingle into other work, and so it's again devoid of any help that they can seek, and their advice is transparent. Now, member of UPSC is again eligible for appointment either only as chairman or as a SPSC, none other than a chairman or an SPSC. No employment is given. Again, the chairman or member of a UPSC is not eligible for reappointment for the second term also. So we don't have the second term. For a member, it's only the chairman or SPSC. For a chairman, there is no further employment. Their entire expenses is charged on consolidated funds, so no vote of parliament. And the conditions of service cannot be varied to disadvantage, and they enjoy security of tenure. Coming into the functions, see, every body, if constituted, has to have a good amount of function that has to be conducted. So the first is UPSC conducts examinations, that we all know of how UPSC has been conducting examinations and been giving all the experienced and all the talented All India service providers to the centrally administered territories. Second, it assists the states in framing and operating schemes of joint recruitment requires any special qualifications. Next is, it serves all or any of the needs of a state of the governor or with the approval of the president. The fourth is, it is consulted on the matters relating to personnel management. It's very easy. Let's quickly go through this. When it comes to personnel management, we see that UPSC is consulted on matters relating to methods of recruitment, making appointments or promotions and transfers from one service to another. Then we see that appointment to civil services or for promotions and transfers, what happens is the concerned departments make recommendations for promotion and then just request UPSC to ratify them as to what has to be done, and also whatever capacity they can. All the disciplinary matters are also consulted by UPSC. Next is, any claim for reimbursement of legal expenses is also seen by UPSC. Any claim for the award of a pension in respect of injury or by a person, anything, it's also seen there. This is important. Matters of temporary appointment for period exceeding 1 year or on regularization of appointments, it is consulted to UPSC. Matters relating to grant of extension of service and re-employment is also consulted, and any other matter related to personnel management, which is very easy. So the Supreme Court also has held now that if the government fails to consult UPSC, the aggrieved public servant has no remedy in the court. In other words, that acting without consultation does not invalidate the decision of the government. That is, the provision is directory and not mandatory. There is no mandate for any personnel management to consult UPSC on any ground, and they can only do it out of their directory, out of their courtesy. Coming to the jurisdiction of UPSC can be extended by an act made by the parliament. So we see that this can also be done, and then the UPSC presents annually to the president a report on its performance, and there the president places this on the House of Parliament, and then what happens is that the why the advice of the commission was not accepted, and the reasons for such non-acceptance is seen, and in all such cases of non-acceptance have to be approved by the appointments committee of the Union Cabinet. An individual ministry or department has no power to reject the advice of the UPSC. This is one important point, because this shows how at one point UPSC has a good post under recognition in the constitution, in the Indian constitution. However, this also goes with limitations. What are the basic limitations that UPSC has is that it's not consulted on the terms when it's appointment of backward class of citizen, when it's appointment or taking the consideration of the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe. Again, for the commissions or tribunals, for the selections, and for a bulk of Group C and Group D services, they are not consulted. And then for the selection for temporary or officiating appointment, also the person appointed is not likely to hold the post for more than a year. They are not consulted. Next is the constitution states that the president may make regulations which by specifying the matters for which it shall not be necessary for UPSC to be consulted, but may all such regulations again has to be laid before the parliament for at least 14 days, and the parliament can amend or repeal them. Coming to the role of UPSC, in this, UPSC has been designated as a watchdog of merit system. How? Because it recruits on a certain criteria, it promotes on, and it sees to the disciplinary matters. However, these are what it's concerned with. Some things that it's not concerned with is classification of services, its pay, its service conditions, the cadre management, the training. These are all handled by the Department of Personnel and Training. So now what we see is that UPSC is only the recruiting agency, and Department of Personnel and Training is the personnel agency in reality. And role of UPSC, however, is not only limited, but recommendations are also just advisory and hence not binding on the government.